What do I find most disturbing about Sam Harris's views? I mean, disturbing's a little bit of, I don't know. I find his views to be, and to be honest with you, the only things that I have read of Sam Harris, one, that piece where he talked about justifying torture, which was a joke. I thought that was a joke. It was internally not even consistent. I don't have it in front of me anymore. But this notion about saying that, I can't even remember what his argument was, but it was something to the effect of like, he was very proud that he was one of the few people in print to justify torture. He doesn't acknowledge what torture does to those who perform it. And I'm not just talking about the actual individuals, but as a policy, the torture is okay. I think it debases our society. It also seems to me, for a guy who's worried about ideas, slowly devolving societies, that seems to be rather problematic. Also, the only other thing I really listened to him in extensive was the Dan Carlin interview. And he seems to have a very naive perspective on how governments work. If I get this straight, I remember being particularly struck by him saying, look, I acknowledge there's a very small amount who are actually violent, but there's this big swath of people who, if you poll them, this is a poll now we're talking about, right? If you poll them, they seem to, at least on some ideological level, agree with these people, but aren't willing to act violently on it. And it is unclear to me what is problematic about that.
It's also just
I mean, I get what's like sort of like generally problematic, but not like the British are coming problematic. Like, I think it's really problematic that 40 or 50% of the people in this country think that dinosaurs coexisted with men. Like, I could make an argument that that level of scientific ignorance and the rights in general, assault on science, is far more dangerous to the planet. In fact, I think this argument is quite easy to make than the idea of however many hundreds of millions Sam Harris thinks are out there who vaguely agree but won't act upon ideas he doesn't like. That the ignorance in and of itself, the belief that men lived with dinosaurs and everything that comes along with the with holding that belief and that level of ignorance, when coupled with the agendas of parties who have a vested interest in keeping people ignorant, that's going to be far more dangerous to the planet in terms of climate change than anything Sam Harris is talking about.
Wouldn't, though, also, even in that case, you have to draw a distinct, like, if somebody believes those things but is not actively involved and doesn't have any sort of desire to participate in diluting the science curriculum, as an example, then how much of a problem is that really?
Well, that's my point.
Right, and that's your problem.
You know what? I would love to play the violin. It is something, honestly, that I have wanted to do my whole life. There has never been a day in my life, in my nearly 49 years, where if you had asked me, do you really want to play the violin, that I wouldn't say, yes, I do. I really do. And there has not been a single day in my life where I have made even the slightest bit of effort to learn to play the violin.
Well, and I think also just other two really quick important points. I mean, the other thing is when you get into polling, and I'm not saying it's a direct equivalency, but terrorist groups would say the people that civilians were attacking are the same people that voted for George Bush or voted for Netanyahu or poll that they support any number of policies we oppose and disagree with. So when you start getting into that kind of logic as a justification for aggressive military policies, you open up a whole tremendously dangerous
That's also
precedent,
what
which
was,
you don't want to flip back on yourself.
That's what it was also, now it's coming to me, which was not internally consistent about his torture thing, was that he was making an argument about it reflecting on all of us or something. Or he was drawing some analogy to bombing. He was saying that torture's no worse than when you engage in war and know you're going to kill civilians. And that to me seems to open up. I mean, if he wants to just go to, results-oriented stuff, then it's really hard not to make, in other words, how many dead civilians are there at the end of the day? That seems to be a very tough place to go if you're trying to argue that Muslims are the real threat in this world. Because it seems to me that on the Muslims versus Judeo-Christian scale, in terms of lives taken of innocent civilians, and you are justifying torture by saying that bombing raids that kill civilians are pretty bad in and of themselves. Well, if that's the scale you're going to go on, I got news for you. On numbers, you lose big time. Big time.
Well, then he reverts to this intentions argument. And,
Well, but that's what I'm saying. It's like,
yeah. You can't pin him anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's that. But, and I would contemplate debating him or offering to debate him, but I'm not as polite as Dan Carlin. I'm not going to, I'm just not as polite. That's my cross to bear.